पुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Together. कटाक्ष किरणाचान्त नमन्मोहाब्धये नमः।
कटाक्ष किरणाचान्त नमन्मोहाब्धये नमः।
अनन्तानन्द कृष्णाय जगन्मङ्गलमूर्तये
अनन्तानन्द कृष्णाय जगन्मङ्गलमूर्तये।
Right. I sent a message. I don't know how many of you actually saw the message or thought about it. Would anybody like to present his thoughts or her thoughts?
Swami, sure.
Sure.
I can do that, Swami. In both cases, their upadhi is, in one case it is Brahman is with Maya. The other case it is in the Jiva's case it is with the other this thing. In both, if you eliminate both of them, what is left is only Brahman, the common denominator.
Correct. What you're saying is right. Would anybody like to elaborate more?
Swamiji, sure, Swamiji.
Hmm.
So I had given some thought about it, and just a flow of thoughts from where I had started is, so how do we actually look at this world? How do we actually understand anything that we see in this world? So we know objects in this world through our perception. So we see something and we understand this is a book, this is a table, this is something. So for all these objects or all these beings that we see in this world, we understand, but when we understand, there is also an adjective through which we understand something. So if I see a flower, how do you, like, if you have to describe a flower, then we say words about those flower. So if it's a blue color flower or a fragrant flower, so everything that we see, we understand with the use of something called adjective. It applies to everything. So if I see a pot, then I understand that pot through, okay, it is round in shape, it can hold something. So any objects that we see in this world, we understand through with the use of adjective. But what makes that object because of which we are able to use this adjective? So the pot, so I cannot just say that, okay, this is a blue flower unless there is a flower. So if I have flower and it has got some qualities, only then using that quality, I am able to explain that flower. So there has to be some subject for which I use these adjectives. And what is the subject? If we take, for example, a pot, what is the subject? We say the pot is the subject, but I'm saying that pot is just an attribute or a name that I'm giving to a shape which is on the clay. So clay is the substance for which I'm giving the name pot, and I'm attributing some qualities, name, function, etc. So this underlying substance or the subject here is the clay. Similarly, if we expand this idea to everything that we know of, there has to be some underlying substance or subject to which I add names and forms and I add attributes. But what is that ultimate or the substance for which I'm giving these names and forms and explaining it to for myself to understand? It just always boils down to Sat, which is Satyam, which is the existence. So there is an existence upon which we give names and forms. This existence by itself cannot be an adjective to anything, because to define anything, we first of all start with the existence. So without existence, you cannot even define anything. Therefore, this existence is the starting point for anything for which, for in our understanding. If I have to define a pot, that pot has to exist first for me to define a pot. If I have to explain a flower, the flower has to exist for me to explain. So this existence is the invariable, unchanging substantive upon which I explain something. And this applies to all objects, this entire Jagat. So if we take a pot, then the Karanam of that pot is clay. So this clay is the Ishvara of pot, because the existence is lent to this pot because of the clay. The clay gives the existence to the pot. So this clay becomes the Ishvara of pot. Similarly, if we take a cloth, everything that we take, there is an Ishvara. So we can call it as pot Ishvara as clay, chain Ishvara as gold, or whatever, jewelry Ishvara as gold. Similarly, we have this Karanam, which we call as Ishvara, but I cannot just bring 1 kg of clay and say this is pot. So there has to be some more intelligence, which because of which this clay is called as pot. So any piece of cloth cannot be a shirt. Any piece of cloth cannot be anything that I can wear. So there is some intelligence and there is some material, which when put together, we call it as an object that we perceive in this Jagat. But if we narrow it down, then the ultimate Karanam is this Satyam, which we otherwise call as also Ishvara. But the thing that we need to understand here is this world is not something random. So there is an order in everything that we see, though it may sometimes see, okay, sometimes we see some chaos, something which is seemingly without order, but there is an underlying order to everything that is in this Jagat. So this order is what we call Ishvara, and that order is nothing but the Sat Chit Atma. But when we try to then analyze what is a pot, the pot is, I can say the pot is nothing but a clay. Wherever I touch a pot, it is nothing but a clay. So what is the difference between pot and clay? The pot is, in my perception, an object which has some purpose to it, but it does not have any independent existence on its own. So pot doesn't exist on its own. Therefore, anything which does not have existence on its own is what we call mithya. And if we extend the logic, then everything that we see around has no existence on its own. Therefore, everything is mithya. This entire Jagat, we can narrow it down through some analysis, through some vichara. We say that it can be negated. But the Satyam, because of which we perceive all this, can never be negated, because it is in my experience and I experience everything. Therefore, because of this Mithya Jagat, we attribute an ultimate Karanam, or we give an ultimate intelligent cause and a material cause to the Satyam, and we call it as Ishvara. And this attribution that we are giving to that non-negatable or unnegatable Satyam is what we understand as Ishvara or Ishvaratvam. But this explains the Jagat. Then what about myself? And what about my problems, my experience? What is the purpose of explaining this Jagat through Ishvara? There are there are definitely some purposes, which is like, for example, if we start seeing everything in this Jagat as only Ishvara's order, which which forms the basis of our entire culture, we have this reverential attitude towards everything that we see in this Jagat. So it automatically inculcates lot of values in us as even children, that we are able to see everything with attitude of respect and reverence. That being apart, for for me personally, I still go through a lot of pain. I'm subject to sorrow and everything. Just like a pot, we say this is gatatvam, um, a potness attributed to a clay. For me, I which who I like, I know myself as something, and for that something, I attribute certain qualities, like this is my name, this is my height, this is my weight, this is my qualification, etc. And when all these qualifications are put on this subject, that becomes the jiva, and those qualities make this jiva um, what it is. But there is a key difference between a gatatvam attributed to a clay and a jivatvam attributed to myself. So this is where it is very important to understand what Shastra says, is because if a pot is painted red color, then we say it is a red pot. But after some time, we paint it into blue color, then it is a blue pot. The pot itself is completely changed. The subject was red pot earlier, and the subject is blue pot. The red pot doesn't exist anymore. But for me, it is not the case. Though my body changes, my intellect changes, I can say that, okay, I was a kid 10 years back and now I'm an young person. But every time when I say about myself, though I change these attributes, the underlying subject that I remains the same even when I was young, or when I'm old, or when I'm sick, or when I'm well, when I'm happy, when I'm sad. The in all through these changes, the underlying subject is always this I, and that I knows itself that it is the underlying I is not changing. Only the attributes attributed to this I is changing, but the underlying I doesn't change. But because of this confusion, that this changing attributes is what I think as I am, therefore it feels like I'm also subject to sorrow, and I'm subject to all experiences. So this changing attributes attributed to this I is called jivatvam. But Shastra says, okay, this changing attributes is part of the Jagat, therefore it is Mithya. The underlying changeless I, which is the satta of this body or body mind sense complex, is not at all different from the Ishvara that we have seen earlier, which is the satta for this entire Jagat. So the satta for the entire Jagat, the existence which gives existence to this Jagat, is the same existence which also gives existence to this I, which is the Jiva. So this Jivatvam and Ishvaratvam, which is seemingly different, are just the changing attributes. But when we remove these attributes, the underlying Atma or the underlying true existence is nothing but oneself, which is what is explained by Tattvamasi, the Mahavakya.
Very good.
Yes, Swami.
Anybody want to add to it, contradict it? What Anand is saying? Yes, Divansh.
uh, Anand quite elaborately completed whole thesis. I will just add what my understanding is, although it will be very short. So the Jivatvam is the superimposition of the I sense in the body and mind over the Brahman. So when we say I am or I is, and then we say I am Divyansh, I am this body, I am this mind, I am sad. So the superimposition of this physical body and the subtle body on the Brahman, we say it is a Jiva because it has association with those. So if it catches a form, then the form goes from one Janma to other Janma to other Janma. So uh, the Jiva was from one Janma to another Janma, even though the Adhisthana, the consciousness that does not change. But it appear the forms keep on changing. So it says that okay, I am also changing. But when we superimpose whole Jagat onto that Brahman, that we call the Vyashti, like Virat, then we say that is Ishvara. So the underlying reality is the Brahman only. But when we talk about the collective, like the Vyashti, so we say that there is some creation happening, there is destruction happening. So we say that all of this together is Ishvara or Virat, or at the certain level we say Hiranyagarbha. But on the Jiva level, that which goes from one Janma to another Janma, that apparently keeps on changing, becomes a doer at certain point and then enjoyer. So that transformation goes on. So that is for the Jiva. And also like in the, I think, Kathopanishad also, we have the Ratha example. So when we keep on going from Indriyas back to the mind say intellect say we have one Jiva sitting. And then we make a jump from one Sukshma Sharira to Samashti Sukshma Sharira that we call Hiranyagarbha. So we say that that Sukshma Sharira depends on the collective Sukshma Sharira, that is Hiranyagarbha. And then from that we can go to Brahman. So this individuality that the Jiva thinks there is, that is not real. So it's like all of things exist as a one thing. Like when we say Virat, all of the living beings are part of it. So there is no individuality per se, but if I have association with only one specific form in that Virat, then I say that okay, I am subject to sorrow, other things are different from me. But when we associate with the Virat, there is already completeness at the, like, let's say, Stula level. So we have not yet reached the Brahman. So when we give example of wave and ocean, so wave is part of the ocean. So if wave thinks of it as individual, then it sees the other waves as different, but all of them are part of the one ocean itself. So if I have association with the wave, so if the wave is small, I feel I am small. If wave is big, I say I am big. Wave dies, I dies. But when we talk about the Adhisthana, that is the Brahman that is introduced as Satyam Jnanam Anantam. So that wave and that ocean are not separate from Brahman. So like when we say about the clay products, so we say, okay, at one, it is like a cognition change. It is not like we are seeing the same thing differently. So we are not making a physical distinction, but we are like the point of view is changed. But that is more real because when we talk about one port and other port, we can say, okay, at the Vyavahara level that there are two ports. But when we talk about at the clay level and we say only there is one clay, so the port is an abstraction. However, like in Vyavahara, we say that the pot is a real thing. But when we talk about the clay, we say pot is an abstraction and it comes and goes. It does not have its own existence. So similarly, Ishwaratvam and Jivatvam do not have independent existence. All of them take existence from the one underlying substratum, Brahman.
Very good. Any other thoughts, inputs?
Only the basic premise is the Tatpada Prakriya and Tvamprada Prakriya. So the Adhishtanam is common for both, Jiva or it is Ishvara. Adhishtanam is Brahman. And it is Kalpita on both. Maya is on the Brahman to become Ishvara. And on the Jiva, it is the usual Kalpana which sing Upadis, which ride on him. So when we negate both the Upadis on both sides, what is left is only Brahman. So Ishvara and Jiva is nothing but the same with Adhishtanam as Brahman. That's the simplest explanation I could think of.
True, true. Any other inputs, Ratnamji?
Any karya is mithya.
Correct.
And Karanam is the real truth. Brahman is the Karanam, and he is the Sarvasya Karanam Brahman, whether it is Jiva or Ishvara. Thank you.
Ratnamji, any thoughts?
Very small, because a lot of explanation has already gone, and so only my single point of this one is that Upadhi Bheda, if you the Atma at the Jiva level, you see Jivatvam, like your individual existence, and as the Samishti, like Jagat Karanam, you tend to call it Ishvara. So, but the Adhisthana for both is that Brahman only. Like Divyans pointed out, like that wave and ocean example, but the Adhisthana for wave and ocean is water. But if you go back into the Panchabhutas, even the Adhisthana for water is Brahman. So that is the only thing. So in the end of the day, it is Advaita. There is only one, which is that one Atma, which is appearing differently because of the Upadhi Bheda.
Anybody else?
I will add one sentence, one word, one vakya.
Mm-hmm.
So what I got was Isharaha Niyanta, Jivaha Niyantridaha. Okay. Paramartadaha Tayoho Bedaha Nasti. That's all. Summarizing everything.
Anybody else? Any other points? Sitarashmi ji or Jayanti or Gauri was there. She's lost connection, I think. This word Ishwaratvam and Jivatvam, I deliberately put those words there. What does it imply? What is the meaning of the word Ishwaratvam and what is the meaning of the word Jivatvam?
Assigning the Jiva, thinking that you are the Jiva, you're assigning the Jiva, the body mind sense complex to Atma is Jivatvam. And if you assign the Jagat Karanam, it is Ishwaratvam. When you assign the Jagat Karanam.
Correct. You're saying one is Jagat Karanam, other is body mind sense complex.
Body mind sense complex.
What are these two things and what is the difference between them?
It is Upadhi Bheda in your viewpoint, how you are looking at it.
Swarupa.
Not Swarupa. Swarupa is
Any
Satyam
word
Jnanam.
where we have
It's a Kalpitam. It's superimposed.
any word like Jivatvam or Ishwaratvam implies a certain quality, correct? A certain attribute. We say Ishvara has Ishvaratvam. What is the Ishvaratvam? That Ishvaratvam that Ishvara has is the ability to create this entire Jagat, to sustain the entire Jagat, and to have the entire Jagat dissolve back into it. That is what we call the Karanatvam, Ishvaratvam, which is different from Jivatvam. The Tvam means it is ness, that quality that you attribute to something which
Ness.
makes it that object. Even in the world, we say something like a pen has a penness. There's a quality that it has to be called a pen. A stick cannot be called a pen. There are some attribute, some quality which you are attributing to that and calling it pen because it has penness. Correct. So Ishvaratvam is Ishvaraness, if we want. What is Ishvaraness?
The Bhaga, the 6 qualities.
The 6 qualities
Reality.
by which Ishvara is able to conceive of the entire Jagat, all the various things, maintain them, sustain them, nourish them, and eventually absorb them back into itself. That is, we define normally as 2 major qualities. All knowledge. It must have the knowledge to create this entire Jagat, and all Shakti. So we say Ishvaratvam is that attribute which we assign to Ishvara, which is all knowledge and all Shakti. Is that correct? Then what is Jivatvam? Jivatvam also is one of those things you attribute certain qualities to Jiva. You all mentioned a lot of interesting things because of Upadhi, because of various other reasons, but we attribute that quality on that, superimpose that quality on that. And then we call it Jiva, and then we call it Ishvara in the other case. So then we have 2 different things. One is Ishvara, one is Jiva. Because we have attributed Ishvaratvam to one thing and Jivatvam to other thing. Therefore, we call them as 2 different things. Therefore, we get the Jiva and an Ishvara elsewhere. What we've been studying, what Swamiji has been trying to explain is this Jivatvam, which is a Karanam for the entire Jagat, itself doesn't stand scrutiny. Why? You all mentioned, for example, I think Jagdishanji mentioned Maya Upadhi and Karyakaran Sanghata Upadhi of the being. But really speaking, if you look at it, it's only Maya Upadhi. Tattva Bodha says Maya Upadhi, the Sattva component of Maya Upadhi is what gives you Ishvara, Ishvaratvam, all knowledge. Other components give you Jivatvam. But if you say that if this is Karanam and everything else is Karyam, and then you develop the argument further and say all this Karyam is what you all mentioned, Mithya, non-existent, non-self-existent, okay. If they are Mithya, there is no Karya left. Therefore, if there is no Karya, where is Karanam? So whatever Karanatvam we have attributed to Ishvara itself comes under scrutiny and we can negate it, Badita. Similarly, what happens in trying to argue that the Jiva is not a Karta. We start by saying Jiva is the Karta. Then we say Jiva is not the Karta. Whatever happens, happens because the Jiva's presence only. Jiva is not the Karta. And to explain that, we give a meaning or we give a word which says Jiva is only a Sakshi. Then question is, Jiva is Sakshi for what? Because if it's Sakshi, it means Sakshi for something. Just like we have Karanam, it means Karanam for certain Karya. If there is no Karya, there is no Karanam. If there is no, and whatever you say is Sakshi is Sakshi for, which in the book Swamiji called Sakshyam, that itself you do some vichara and say that is also mithya. If there is no Sakshyam, there is no Sakshi. Now what happened? You've negated Ishwaratvam, which is a quality. You've negated Jivatvam, which is also quality. And like many of you said, then what is left behind?
Only Brahman.
Only Brahman. That is how we understand Advitiya Brahman. It is only a kalpita, an imagination. Because Maya is only an imagination. We are working backwards from the Jagat and saying there is Jagat, I have to explain the Jagat. Therefore, I conceive of an idea called Maya, which itself is Vitya. It's a non-existent item we are trying to introduce in order to show that, oh, Jagat came like this. Then we negate that also. There is no real Maya. There is nothing other than Brahman. Maya is a concept that we impose in order to explain the world. The world consists also of Ishvara. The dichotomy between Ishvara and Jiva is in the Jagat. And that two-ness truly belongs to Mithya. But we start with that. We understand the world like that. And then slowly, as your argument goes further and further, deeper and deeper, we say there is only Brahman. And that Brahman is Nirguna. No attribute. So remove all the attributes, there's only a Brahman left. Even Nirguna is a very tough word to understand. When you say Nirguna, it's also a relative word. Unless you have some guna, how can you talk of Nirguna? Unless you know some guna, how can you say Nirguna? It's not even Nirguna. Brahman is not even Nirguna. But for our understanding, we use words like Nirguna. Brahman is, period. Now we are raising ourselves to a level where we are negating everything. We've negated the Jagat. And because we negated Jagat as a Karyam, we negated Karanatvam, which means Ishwaratvam is gone. We negated the Jagat as Mithya. There's no Sakshyam, therefore there's no Sakshi. Jivatvam is gone. What is left, we initially say is Nirguna Brahma, and then we start looking at the Nirguna word carefully and say there's not even Nirguna Brahma, it is just Brahman. That is Advaita. Ekameva Advitiya Brahman. This much logically we can arrive at. The next big problem is, how do you say I is Brahman? Aham Brahmasmi. You have to re-examine the word I itself. Then when you start examining the word I, you knock out everything which initially performed part of I and join them with Jagat. Even when you do that, I exist. then the only possibility is that Ekameva Advitya Brahman, which is not even Nirguna, is I. It's only understanding. I thought Swami had done a beautiful job of bringing this out. This particular verse also does that very nicely. This and the next verse and the next verse. In fact, I think from here, more or less, all these are arguments buttressing this only. Yes, Satnamji, you had some point.
No, Swami, I got a knowledge which came up just on your talk saying earlier we are thinking Sakshi, but Sakshi to what? But then nothing is happening. So where is the Krishna? So actually, even
There's
Sakshi is a
nothing.
misnomer. Sometimes I feel
That's exactly what he's saying. There's no Sakshyam.
there's no Sakshi. Where is Krishna Sakshi? All along you have
Therefore,
been
there
telling
is.
Sakshi.
See, that is why, remember, we've been talking all the time saying that anything which is on a scale is part of the Mithya Jagat. What is Brahman? For want of better description, we use words. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. But this Satyam Jnanam Anantam, one has to understand Lakshyartham of these words. And the Lakshyartham is when you're able to knock all qualities out of it, all attributes out of it. Then you start understanding that Satyam, Jnanam and Anantam, the three words, mean the same. Only in the dictionary, in the Jagat, you will find three different meanings. But when you look at it from a Lakshyartha, all the three words mean exactly the same. Himash?
Just one example, Swamiji came to my mind about the Sakshi thing Ratnamji said. So I think JRU also said that by Sakshi we mean that it only is. It's not like doing anything, not doing Sakshyam, not doing anything, but it's only is. So we can understand like on a movie screen. So if we have a movie screen and on that a movie is projected, the screen has nothing to do with the movie. Even if in the movie there is some fire, the screen does not catch fire. It is there water, it does not get wet. It is same as saying that Atma cannot be burned, Atma cannot be get wet. So because that is a different order of reality. It just is, and that is Sakshi.
No, but I was going to the logic saying that Sakshi means some event is happening for which it is witnessing, but otherwise the event itself is Mithya. So what is
Yeah.
that Atma which is going to do anything?
Yeah, that is the, I think, limitation of the language we
Exactly.
discuss, right? Yeah.
I was trying to remember verse 23 of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Who remembers? He mentioned just now, Divyan.
Nenam Chandans.
Correct.
Avakaha,
Nainam Chindanti Sastrani,
Shastan, Nainam
Nainam
Dahati
Dahati
Pavakaha,
Pavakaha, Nachainam
Nayam
Kledayantyapah,
Pyapo, Nashoshayati
Nashoshati
Marutaha.
Shoshayati Marutaha. Connections. This is Medha Shakti. How you connect things from different places.
There is,
Very
I
nice,
think,
Divyan.
Swamiji, there is one more thing, ki, like language has limitations. So words can only I think there are 5 categories that words can describe, and Atma does not fit any of them, like noun, verb, etc., relationships. So I think कोई भी अगर word, if any word is like talking about Atma, we should first look for the Lakshyartha. We should not take it as it
Only
is.
Lakshyartha. I don't know who remember, I think Anand mentioned that these are adjectives. How can I have an adjective for Brahman? You can't have an adjective of Brahman. Adjectives for objects. So, very nice. Ishvara, adjective is Ishvaratvam. Karanam.
Similarly, for
Jiva, adjective is
Jivatvam is the adjective.
Alpajnam, Alpashakti, etc.
Swamiji, I have a question, Swamiji. Maybe it's scrutinizing into a nuance, but yeah, just it occurred. So any object or any when we say Jivatvam or Ishwaratvam, we say that Ishvara is, Jiva is, therefore Jivatvam. But if we look at it, it is these two does not go individually, like one does not follow the other. Like if there is Jivatvam, it implies Jiva. And if it is a Jiva, if there is a Jiva, it implies Jivatvam. So one does not follow the other, right? So if there is no Jiva, then who does this Jivatvam apply to? It doesn't apply to anything. At the same time, if there is a Jiva, then it already presupposes a Jivatvam also. So it goes hand in hand, and it is not like one follows the other, right, Swamiji? So
Correct. You're right. You're right.
but when we say there is an object and the object has an adjective, or like the object is and the adjective follows, but it is never that case, right, Swamiji? Because the object and the adjective goes always hand in hand.
At least one adjective. You can then keep on adding
Yeah.
more adjectives.
Yes.
Right. You're right.
Yeah, Jiva and Jivatvam both are upadhis to Atma only. No?
Therefore, no, Jiva is not an upadhi. Jiva is Atma. Jivatvam is the derivative. Ishwaratvam is the derivative. Jiva, Ishvara, Brahman is the same.
Okay, in that sense. Okay, ठीक है.
But from the point of view of our understanding, depending upon where we are in the process of learning, we either accept Ishvara and Jiva as two separate items, or we cross the threshold and understand that Ishvara, Jiva, and
It's the same.
Brahman and I are all the same. But one has crossed the threshold. Till then, they're two separate things.
I think, Swami, that is where the
The
differences.
point that Anand is raising, see, that is why it is so important to recognize this cognitively. You cannot remove Jivatvam from Jiva. This is the point you're making. It's not a physical separation. But you understand that if you can conceive of removing Jivatvam, the only body left is only Brahman. You can't do it. You're absolutely right. I know there's a huge discussion Swamiji had once in the class. You call it a pot because it's potness. Where is the bed of the potness reside? Is it in the pot or outside the pot? Is it in the clay, on the clay, under the clay? There's something to think about. You can't physically, you only cognitively separate this. And therefore you are able to, we say you see Brahman. You don't see Brahman, you can't see Brahman. But you recognize the fact that there is something which is, which you can understand. Jiva, Jivattam, Ishvara, Ishwarattam, knock these off. Ishvara, Jiva is only one, and that's Brahman. That's why somebody gives the example. I think he gave the example of the wave and water, wave and ocean and water. So when you are still in the process of learning, when you're still trying to get to that stage of understanding, we say everything came from Ishvara, everything sustained by Ishvara, everything goes back to Ishvara. Unfortunately, in many places, it uses Brahman for the same word, Brahman for the same thing. But nothing comes from Brahman. Nothing goes into Brahman. Brahman is not a thing into which something can go. Even in Upanishad, it says like that. But at the point when we're still understanding the truth, we accept Ishvara as Jagat Karanam. And then when we are able to raise ourselves beyond that thinking, then we only see Brahman. Then Brahman, Ishvara, Jiva, and the idea of I, all the same. Yes, Divyansh?
Swamiji, the thing you talk about, like when we talk about clay, so where is the potness in the clay? So I remember one line. So when they say that if you talk about the Sat Vastu, like it's like uh like when you see the rope, the snake is no more. So if you see the clay, the pot is no more. And like there
There's
is
no
one,
potness.
yes, and
Then there's
there
no
is, I
potness.
think, one pada of Kabir also that um the I think it's related to bhakti, that the alley through which you go is very narrow. So only Ishvara goes, or the like the when the person says from the Jnana perspective, Aham Brahmasmi. So only one goes at a time. So two can't exist at the same time.
Yeah, good analogy. But for purposes of understanding for the world and for all of us at the early stages, we say Vishwara is always with you. He is always supporting you. There was a story I remember where you said, a person was struggling and walking on the beach, and then he found two sets of footprints saying Ishvara was always walking with me. That's very good at that stage. At that stage, bhakti is so important because we don't have the capacity as an Alpajna, Alpashaktiman, we don't have the capacity to understand this. So we're constantly looking for Ishvara's grace and Guru's grace. Without their grace, this understanding is not possible.
What is Guru's grace?
Same as Ishvara's grace. Guru is Ishvara. Why do you say it's Guru?
He
What do you say?
removes the
Guru
darkness.
Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Reva Param Brahma.
Tasmai Shri Guru.
Because
Yes, sir.
once you accept that a person is a Shrotriya Brahmanishtha, either is already a Jnani or Brahmanishtha who is definitely going to be at that phase. And if he's a Jnani, then what is he? Brahman.
Ishvara.
Brahman.
हाँ मतलब
For
but
us,
you used
maybe,
it twice, right?
Divyansh, maybe we can take it as Ishvara's grace manifested through a guru.
Manifest through the Guru.
Obviously, that's the only
Absolutely.
way.
So,
No. Yeah, but Swamiji used it twice, right? Ishvara's grace and Guru's grace.
Yeah,
So,
through to whom we are learning all this through Guru only, na? Who is imparting
हाँ तो
this knowledge of
ईश्वरस
Brahman
ग्रेस
on
कहना
us?
आई थिंक सफिशिएंट होगा
Guru
ना.
Mukhena,
No,
Guru
no, दोनों का
Mukhena,
grace चाहिए. Both
Guru
the grace is
Mukhena.
required.
गुरु इज नॉन सेपरेट फ्रॉम ईश्वर है ना. अभी तो वही बात हुई.
Till the time, till the time.
ओके.
Guru, he
तक
says,
आपको
acts as the medium for you to access that grace.
That's why Guru Mukhena.
The grace is available like, in UP, electricity used to be before this government came,
where
used to be available everywhere. Anybody could just throw a wire and access
right.
electricity. Like that, grace is available everywhere. Ishvara's grace is available everywhere. But you need a medium. That is the Guru. That's why Shastra asks you to work with a live Guru. That's why Swamiji was never in favor of online teaching, YouTube, all that have their own great limitations. Up to a point they help, but beyond that they cannot do it. Great discussion. We're almost done. They've only got 5 minutes left. Shall we read a few or there is a point that we not discussed? Take it up for the last 5 minutes. I really wish there were more people because this discussion is so powerful that all of points that all of you raised So this point about saying Brahman is nirguna, even that is a very important thing to contemplate upon. Brahman is not even nirguna. Nirguna implies guna.
Correct. Correct.
Shade
So-
implies sunshine somewhere. So even nirgunatvam is also a tvam. Brahmani is period. Swamiji gave the example we read, I remember last time. What is bossness?
Vastness, yeah.
I remember he said, you
There is
cannot
no
be a boss unless you have people to boss over.
report to boss over.
Otherwise, you're not a boss. I have a one-man office, I am the boss. Of what?
One-man army.
So bossness is not possible. Like I remember, I also talked about the example of man running a one-man race and saying, I won the race. I came first. You came first?
You require at least
Therefore,
another
second,
one.
third, fourth. So the firstness is not there. So there's no second, third, and fourth. Amazing when you think about all of these things. We don't give it sufficient thought, sufficient analysis. But when you study these things, especially when you go into studying things like Brahma Sutra, a lot of such discussions come up. Divyansh, you had something else to say?
One last thing I remembered. So I think in GHS there was one point Swamiji was making that when we have, let's say, sound and the Shravanendriya, the Indriya for listening to sound. So without the sound, there is no point of having that Indriya. And without the Indriya, there is no perceivable sound. So both have interdependence on each other. So that's why there must be another thing that both of them depend on too. So like when we say bossness and the जो नीचे होता है उसके, so one depends on other and bossness depends on this. So there must be another underlying reality on which both of these exist. So
Yeah, good way of analyzing these. Okay, any other point? Otherwise, let's close for today. Just a couple of minutes left. We will continue this.
Swamiji, what is that December thing you were announcing? I did not get it.
In November 28th to December 3rd, 5 days, we are doing a camp called Ishvara Darshanam. I will send you the posters are ready. I'll send you the posters. You can block your dates if you plan to come. This is in a place called Manjakudi, which is Swamiji's birthplace, which has been done up beautifully. We've had some camps there already, so some of the people will know. I will send you those details.
28th November to 3rd December.
3rd December. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya